Hello. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Good, you?
Good, thank you.
Sorry, I had to set up my stuff.
It's all good. Good to see everybody. I'm gonna wait just a couple of minutes and let everyone else get online. Is there anyone online right now that was not with us last week? Okay. Good to see everyone. We've got 24 folks. I'm gonna wait just a few more seconds and let anyone else join us. Y'all, I'll probably start taking attendance next week, probably. And I have another housekeeping item that I want to share with you in just a moment. Okay, y'all, let's go ahead and get started, and feel free to unmute yourself right now, because it is now time for me to say, may the force be with you.
And also
with you.
Hey, you just, my heart just skipped a beat. You guys are awesome. Welcome back to Intro to Philosophy class. It's good to see everyone. Give me 1 sec. I'm going to shut my office door so as to be a good neighbor. Hang on 1 sec. Okay, good to see everyone. I wanted to say 2 things regarding housekeeping. Actually, only one. Yeah, 2 things. And the second one I should probably put up on Canvas, and I will try to do that. And that is, I'll say the second one first. We're going to keep meeting on Zoom. Okay. By the way, if someone has opinions about that, let me know. But I kind of feel like my online teaching practice is kind of, I don't know. I feel like I'm nailing it. Compared to last semester. Last semester I did YouTube Live, and I think it wasn't that great, but I feel much better about Canvas because you can share the screen. I can also see your names. And we can look at documents together, none of which was possible on YouTube Live. So I feel like I'm getting better at this. And then the other thing is, I've had at least 4 students tell me that they've tested positive for COVID. You guys probably know that the numbers are insane right now. I mean, and the spread of the virus is worse right now than it's ever been by far. And I just think, I don't know, I have made the decision that I'm going to keep doing my classes on Zoom. Okay. And I will continue to record them and put them on YouTube. So if you're absent, or if you need to watch it again, then you can do that. But I'm not going to record it in the classroom. I'm not going to record it in the classroom, but I can record it in my office and in my house. So that's what I'm thinking for now. If y'all have issues with that, you know how to get me, right? Text me, call me, send me an email. But that's my plan for now. My hope is that we won't have to wear masks by mid-March, maybe early March, best case scenario, maybe, in which case we'll go straight back. We'll go straight back. But I'm wanting the vaccine to kick in, and I'm wanting to give that some time. And I'm going to keep doing my classes online for now, and probably until the vaccines start to kick in and we start to see real movement there. Yeah. So if you haven't gotten a vaccine, I hope you'll get one. If you haven't made plans to do that, I hope you'll do that. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that? We're going to stay online for now. Okay. That's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing I wanted to say is that I will probably try to take attendance next week. Let me put it this way. I reserve the right to take attendance next week. I'm not going to do it today because I don't feel like it and I'm not prepared to, but I might next week. So just FYI. Okay. Y'all, I think those are all the housekeeping things that I had. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or jokes at the moment? I just got a text and I appreciate that. I will look at that text here in a moment or after the class. Okay. Thank you guys. Y'all, what we're going to do today is continue with our reading schedule. Who can tell me what is the topic of discussion for this week?
Parmenides, Plato.
Uh,
We're not doing the readings this week because you marked them out. So on Friday we start Plato.
that's right. So what are we doing today?
Heraclitus and Parmenides.
That's it. Heraclitus and Parmenides. Yes, that's
Sorry
exactly
again for
right.
my pronunciation again.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. Heraclitus and Parmenides. Yeah, so that's what we're going to discuss today. You have the two PDFs. Let's see if I can pull them up real quick. I have hard copies of both of those texts, but I'm going to pull them up online as well. Can you all see my desktop at the moment?
No, sir.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Can you now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes.
All right. Okay. We're going to do Heraclitus first and then Parmenides. All right. And I hope that you guys had a chance to read these. If you didn't, I hope that you will. You know, I don't assign a ton of reading in my classes because I want you to do the little reading that I do assign. So I hope that you did that. And yeah, we're going to start out with Heraclitus. Okay. Y'all can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I think is really interesting. So Heraclitus and Parmenides are both what we call pre-Socratic philosophers. You can see that word pre-Socratic right here on the screen. What does the word pre-Socratic mean?
Before Socrates.
That's right, before Socrates. So there's a whole slew of pre-Socratic philosophers that you could learn about online for hours and decades on end. We're only talking about two of them. And the reason we're talking about these particular two is because they go really well together. It's as if at the beginning of my class, what I try to do is I try to take Heraclitus and I try to take Socrates and marry them. I am a priest. I marry people all the time. Wow. Does that mean I believe in gay marriage? I don't know. No comment right now. That's a different topic. But we're going to take Heraclitus and Parmenides and put them together because they make a really good marriage in the same way that cookies and milk make a really good marriage. Or what else? Beer and pizza. You know, it's hard for me to imagine eating Oreos without milk. They go so well together. And in the same way, Heraclitus and Parmenides, they go really well together. They complement each other. But I want to start out like this. Both of these thinkers, in a weird way, they say the same thing. Would anyone like to take a stab at telling me what both of these thinkers say that is the same thing?
Hey,
That all things are one.
say everything.
Who said
Everyone's
all things are one?
confused.
Jagger.
That's right, Jagger. All things are one. I think it's fascinating that they both say that. Now, what's weird is that they mean radically different things by that statement. They both say all is one. And what are some other words for all? What are some synonyms that instead of saying all is one, we could say blank is one? What are some other things that we could say?
Everything?
Yes, we could say everything is one. What are some other things we could say? How about this? The universe is one, or the cosmos is one. That Greek word cosmos, cosmos, is the Greek word for world or universe. And we could say that the world is one, the cosmos is one. That's exactly right. And it's weird that Heraclitus and Parmenides both say that all is one, but they mean very different things by that. And here's the way that I think about it. When Heraclitus says all is one, he's kind of thinking of the world or the cosmos as if the world or the cosmos is, what does James Warren say? He thinks of all as what? It might be Peter Adamson that says this, I can't quite remember, but one of them says that Heraclitus, it's kind of like he's thinking of the universe or all as a bottle of vinaigrette salad dressing, right? Did y'all read that somewhere in the handouts? A bottle of vinaigrette salad dressing. Now, I don't know if any of y'all like to cook. I don't, but thanks be to God, my 17-year-old makes amazing pasta and she loves to cook and she explains things to me sometimes. But if you think about a bottle of vinaigrette dressing, right? Like just imagine that the Starbucks cup is a bottle of vinaigrette dressing, or better yet, this cup right here. What happens is that and please, if I get this wrong, someone please correct me, but what happens is that the oil settles down to the bottom, right? And the water and stuff like that settles at the top, right? Does that make sense? And so what do you have to do to that bottle of vinaigrette dressing to make it good? What do you have to do to it?
You shake it?
You shake it up, right? Like a good bartender making a mixed drink. You have to shake it up. That's exactly right. And when you shake it up, what's happening to all of the molecules in the bottle of dressing? What are they doing?
Flowing.
I like it. Mingling, commingling, they're flowing around each other. That's exactly right. In other words, you could say that after you shake it up, the bottle of salad dressing is kind of like a big flux, right? Everything's changing, everything's getting mixed up. There's a lot of movement. That's exactly right. And y'all, when Heraclitus says that all is one, that's the kind of thing that he means. Parmenides, who we're going to talk about in a few minutes, he means something very, very different when he says that all is one. But for now, we're going to stick with Heraclitus, okay? Now, I'm going to read the first paragraph of the article. I'm going to read it out loud, unless someone else wants to read it. Wait, is that what I wanted to read? Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to read. Yeah, I'm going to read the first paragraph, okay? Would someone else like to read it?
I'll read it.
All right, who said that?
Adam Martinez.
Awesome, Adam, thank you. Go ahead. Read the first paragraph.
Okay. The sayings so far are all good examples of way in which we might understand the central slogan that all things are one. Some of them also hint at the idea that this unity is the product of a kind of tension of strife, a dynamic process of change that results in overall stability, but Heraclitus was often associated with a very radical doctrine of extreme flukes. The idea that the world is subject to constant and thorough changes, such that nothing at all is stable for any time. This picture of the flukes obsessed Heraclitus can be traced in particular to Plato and to various followers of Heraclitus, such as Cratylus, who gives his name to one of Plato's dialogues. Cratylus, we learn from Aristotle, espoused a radical theory that he traced back to Heraclitus and in turn influenced Plato. When Plato was young, he was a companion of Cratylus and acquainted with Heraclesian, where was it? Okay, such as Cratylus. I lost my place.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I'll start from here. Cratylus, we learned from Aristotle, espoused a radical theory that he traced back to Heraclitus and in turn influenced Plato. When Plato was young, he was a companion of Cratylus and acquainted with Heraclitean views that are all perceptible things that are constantly in flukes and there is no knowledge of them. Later, Plato too believed this. Elsewhere, Aristotle explains how radical Cratylus' views came to be. Do you want to read that?
Actually, I would like someone else to read that next quotation, and very good, Adam. Thank you so much for that. Would someone else like to read this next paragraph? The quotation right there?
Yeah, I'll read it.
Great.
Cratylus ended up thinking that we should not speak, but instead simply raised his finger. And he criticized the Heraclitean statement that it is impossible to step into the same river twice, where he thought it was impossible to step into it even once.
Good. Okay, y'all, what's going on there? There's a couple of things going on in this paragraph. I'm going to try to say some things super quickly. First off, let me just let me spit this out so we can move on. What is the relationship between Heraclitus and Cratylus on the one hand? So let me hear you say Cratylus.
Cratylus.
Good job. So, remember how we talked about Plato, how he wrote dialogues, and dialogues are not systematic treatises like your geometry textbook from high school. No, dialogues are what?
Conversations.
Yeah, they're conversations, they're stories, they're dramatic works of art, right? And one of Plato's dialogues is called the Cratylus. Sometimes his dialogues are named after people, and he named one of his dialogues the Cratylus. Now, we're not going to read that dialogue in this class, but what I want you to know is that Cratylus is like Heraclitus on steroids. In fact, I'm going to put that in the chat. Cratylus, and that's really the only reason we talk about Cratylus in this class. I don't know if I spelled it right. Yeah, Cratylus is like Heraclitus on steroids. Okay, y'all see that? Basically, Cratylus comes along and one-ups Heraclitus. He repeats Heraclitus's point, but on steroids. Okay, and what is the basic thing that Heraclitus says? The basic thing that Heraclitus says is you can't step in the same river, what?
Twice.
Twice.
Or even once.
Twice, right? And we talked about that last class. We talked about how if we take a field trip up to the Brazos River, was it the Brazos River?
Sure.
I think it was the Sabine.
The Sabine. If we take a field trip up to the Sabine River, and we all like stick our foot in it, and then we go back the next day, the river's different. It's a different river, right? Because it's changed. Not only are the molecules of water completely different from the ones that were there the day before, but literally like the tributaries and the pathways of the river has shifted slightly. And for Heraclitus, that means that it's a different river. So he means quite literally that we cannot step in the same river twice, right? But Heraclitus comes along and he Cratylus comes along and he one-ups Heraclitus, because Cratylus says, oh, no, it's not just that you can't step in the same river twice. It's the truth is way more radical than that. The truth is that you can't even step into the same river once. Now,
Once.
why in the world would Cratylus say that?
Because he thinks that the river is changing as you step on it.
Who said that?
Sergio.
That's right.
Sergio.
That's right, Sergio. In other words, Cratylus thinks that that the river is always changing. It's constantly in the process of change, right?
Mm.
Now, do y'all know that this is kind of embarrassing that this I'm about to prove to you that I have a 12-year-old who's really into video games, but y'all have heard of the little video game character named Benton? He is a video game character, right? I think that's
Benton or like Ben 10? Oh, Ben 10.
Ben 10. Y'all know who Ben 10 is?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a cartoon.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's constantly changing, right? Am I right about that?
Yes.
Like at one
Yes.
moment he's a weird like alien, and the next moment he's a mouse. I don't really know that much about Ben 10, but just imagine that he's constantly changing from this form to this form to this form. By the way, there's an ancient Greek mythological figure kind of like Ben 10 called Proteus. Go ahead. Did someone say something? Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah, so the point about Ben 10 is that he's constantly changing. Well, guess what? That's Heraclitus's point about the river. Like, imagine that you were walking up to Benton and like, he's like, so, you know, at one moment he's a weird alien, and then like a nanosecond later, he's like a mouse. And let's say you try to touch him right when he's in the middle of that change. Are you touching a mouse? No. Are you touching a weird alien figure? No. It's because he's in constant flux, right? That is what Cratylus is saying about the river. The river's constantly changing, kind of like those sand castles that we talked about last time on the beach. Who can remind me what we said about those sand capsules, those sand castles in the time-lapse video? What do we say about those?
It might not look like they're changing, but they're slowly like eroding away.
That's right. And that's happening all the time, right? So if you were to just glance up at the sandcastles, it looks like, well, it looks like they're real. Or I'm going to put something in the chat. It looks like those sandcastles have a stable identity. You see that? It appears that those sandcastles have a stable identity. Let me ask you a question. Does that word stable pop up in the paragraph that we just read? It does. It pops up twice. Because you see what Heraclitus is saying in Cratylus, remember Cratylus is just like Heraclitus on steroids. What they're saying is that the things of this world do not have a stable identity. Why? Because they're constantly changing. Like, you might think that you can point to a sandcastle and describe it to your friend, but in reality, that sandcastle is not going to be there in 3 hours. So is it really real? This is the point of Heraclitus. Does it have a stable identity? Does that make sense? Now, I see someone laughing, and that's cool. I'm glad you're laughing. That means that it's kind of weird. Guess what? Philosophy is kind of weird, but these questions are super important. Have you ever heard anyone say that actually, like when it comes to human gender, things like male and female, those things aren't real? There is no such thing as a stable identity as a male. Have you ever heard anyone say that?
Yeah.
You hear that all the
Yes.
time. Well, where do those kind of ideas come from? They come from people like Heraclitus. Heraclitus, who says that the things in the world that we think are real, the things in the world that scientists think that they can talk about, like trees or gender or race or planets or nebulae, what Heraclitus is saying is that actually those things have no stable identity. Why? Because they're constantly changing. All right.
Will he say the same about like ideas,
Oh, that's a great question. Who asked that?
Sergio?
That's a great question, Sergio. I don't know. By
Because
the way,
like you couldn't have an idea then if that's how it's gonna be. Like
Yeah.
every idea is not an idea. It's just, well, it really isn't anything. But
listen, Sergio, that it's a great question. I'm so glad you're asking. And y'all, part of if you want to know if a philosopher is full of bullshit or not, just ask yourself this: are they willing to say I don't know? Like good philosophers and good thinkers and good teachers and good pastors will often, and good husbands, by the way, will often say, I don't know. I don't know. Like, is there a rule that I have to know everything? No. In fact, when we get to Socrates, we're going to see that what made Socrates so wise is not that he knew everything. What made Socrates so wise is that he was able to say, I don't know. Socrates said, the only thing I know is that I don't know anything at all. That's crazy. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, right? So Sergio, it's a great question. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I want to give you a little tool for thinking about that, a little tool. And the tool is this. It's helpful to distinguish between material things on the one hand, stuff that's made out of matter, versus immaterial things on the others, things that are not made out of matter. Are you with me? And many people would say that when it comes to ideas, or we could say concepts and other things like that, that those are not actually material things. And so I think that it would be safe to say, or safe to assume, that when Cratylus says that all is flux, he's actually talking only about the material world. The material world. All right.
Yeah.
But I'm just giving you a tool. I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure that, but that's what I would say, along with just, I don't know. Okay. But y'all, let me give you another word, another fancy word. And this is, I want to give you another fancy word to describe Heraclitus's worldview, or his intellectual posture. Okay. His intellectual posture. I'm going to give you another word for Heraclitus's intellectual posture or worldview. That should say world, not word. And that is this. And it's a word that probably many of you have heard of, and we may have even discussed it in the class yet. Have we talked about that word?
No,
Not really, no.
Okay, good. Who can say that word?
Nihilism.
Good. Some people say nihilism, some people say nihilism. I'm going to say nihilism, and that's because this word comes from the German word nihil, which means nothing. I can't type today. The German word nihil means nothing, okay? And in a way, that's a label that we can take and slap on to Heraclitus's worldview / intellectual posture. We could say that Heraclitus is a what?
Nihilist.
He's a nihilist. That's exactly right. Now, why would we say that? We say that because he thinks that nothing in the world has a stable identity. He thinks that actually you might think that you see an oak tree or a sandcastle or a Starbucks cup, but actually if you just do the time lapse, you'll see that it's not going to be around in an hour or a century or a millennium. And so we can't really say that the oak tree is real. We can't really say that the sandcastle is real. We can't really say that the cup is real. Why? Because for Heraclitus, they have no stable identity. That's nihilism, okay? And when we get to Friedrich Nietzsche near the end of the class, we're going to come back to nihilism. So I open my intro to philosophy class with nihilism and I close it with nihilism. But for now, I want to ask you a question. Would it shock you if I were to say that Christianity is very close to nihilism?
I think I know what you mean.
Yes.
Would that
I
would
think
that
it
you-
means like, I feel like what you mean by that is that it's close to that because nothing like people's faith changes over time or how they view things. And so like you really are not
okay, now,
stable.
what is your name?
Sarah,
Sarah with an H?
without one.
Without one. Thank you. I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to point something out real quick. Do you remember the little tool that I gave to Sergio?
Yes.
What was it? It was the distinction.
Consider
I low-key
physical-
forgot. I wanted to say yes because I thought I remembered, but I low-key
Oh,
forgot.
you're awesome. It's a distinction. This is the tool that I gave to Sergio, a distinction between two things. What are the two things? Who can remind me?
You said like physical objects and then like non-physical objects, like matter and non-matter.
That's right, Nick. And I did not use the word physical. Actually, I used the word material. So yes, you're right. By the way, I don't have time to tell you why I didn't use the word physical, but it has to do with this book. Remember this book? Aristotle's Physics. What does Aristotle mean by the word physics, or in Greek, physios? What does he mean by that?
Things that
Nature.
move.
What?
Things that move.
Matter?
Nature.
Those are all good answers. They're not the best answer, though. The best answer is nature. I think I heard someone say it. Nature. So, Nick, you're totally right. High five to you. But the distinction was between material stuff.
So is that like what you read versus what you believe? Is that what you're meaning by material versus immaterial?
Kind of, sort of, yes. That's why I'm bringing it up, Sarah. Material things are things that you can see, taste, touch, smell, or hear. Immaterial things you cannot taste, see, touch, smell, or hear. Can you taste, see, touch, smell, or hear a concept? Yes or no?
No,
How about a belief?
no.
No.
Right. Now, Sarah, Heraclitus is talking about the material world. You were starting to talk about beliefs, right? You were saying beliefs change. Maybe that's why Father Matt is saying that Christianity is close to nihilism. And that, like, high five to you. I can tell that you're thinking, but remember, Heraclitus is talking about material objects, not ideas, not beliefs. Okay. Now, Sarah, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I was pretty much done anyways.
Who else can guess why I might say that Christianity is close to nihilism?
Is it because it has a like predetermined end to it?
Because why?
It has like a predetermined end, thus being like the Book of Revelation. So
Okay.
like doesn't
That doesn't sound like nihilism to me, though, right?
The only, oh, go ahead.
You know what I'm saying, Nick? Like, nihilists don't believe in predetermined ends.
It'd be like
Nihilists-
The only thing I can relate it to is Plato's. If you read the Erythro, or however you say it in Plato, they try to define a word, which in that section or dialogue, they can't define it. So that's the only thing I can relate it to.
Ooh, I
Maybe
really-
you can't define it.
that's awesome, Jagger. Hold that thought, and we'll come back to it later. Y'all, let me just cut to the chase and tell you why I'm saying that Christianity is close to nihilism. Okay, can y'all see my screen right now?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. You can read all my email. Okay. I want someone to read this Bible verse for me.
I will.
I need someone to read Genesis. Go ahead and read the first 2 verses. Y'all, this is the creation of the world, right? Genesis chapter 1. Who can read these first 2 verses for me?
I will.
Awesome.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep.
Okay, stop.
And this,
Awesome. That was great. Was that Sierra?
yes, sir.
Thank you, Sierra. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void. What? Formless and void? That sounds kind of like what Heraclitus is talking about, doesn't it? I mean, Heraclitus is talking about that salad dressing bottle that you shake it up and everything's swirling in and out of each other. Here's another phrase that I like to use to talk about, or this is a label for what Heraclitus is thinking. And this is something y'all could write down. Heraclitus thinks that the world is a blooming, buzzing confusion. A blooming, buzzing confusion. That phrase comes from an American modern philosopher named William James. What's a blooming, buzzing confusion? It's kind of like a big mess, right? A blooming, buzzing confusion. Let me give you another example of a blooming, buzzing confusion. Oops. Huh? Yeah, this. Have y'all ever seen this? What is that? That's TV static from the 1970s. That's TV static, right? Like, I'm an old man. We've already covered that. I'm cool with it. I like being an old man, just for the record. But I remember whenever, like, you'd turn on the TV at home and you'd see this. That's called static. What is that? It's a blooming, buzzing confusion, right? Like, can you point to one of the dots? No, because by the time you lift your finger, it's gone, right? This is a situation of radical flux. Are you with me? But think about what Genesis 1:2 says. Genesis 1:2, I'm going to put it in the chat. Genesis 1:2, the world was formless and void. What is a void, y'all?
Is it empty?
What's a void?
Nothing. Emptiness.
I'm not sure what a void is, but it's kind of like nothing, right? I mean, a void is like, it's like an abyss. It's like a black hole.
It's endless.
When Genesis 1:2 says that the world was formless and void, it means that there was no order. There was no shape. In Genesis 1:2, there is no such thing as a beautiful painting. There is no such thing as a beautiful, who is the most beautiful supermodel you can think of? Well, that didn't exist back then. Neither did a sweet little kitty cat. Nothing existed that was beautiful or that even had shape. There were no circles. There were no triangles. There were no trees. There was nothing. It was just a blooming, buzzing confusion. It was a big mess. Now, can y'all see how Genesis 1:2 is kind of like Heraclitus? Can y'all see that? Heraclitus is saying that the only thing that's real is flux, change. Everything's changing all the time. Things don't have a stable identity. And whenever you were looking at that TV static, could you see anything with a stable identity? Yes or no?
No.
I think the answer is no, right? But you see, that's in the Bible. That's kind of crazy. What? Is the Bible nihilistic? Well, I'm not saying that the Bible's nihilistic, but what I'm saying is that there is a deep, profound truth in nihilism, in what Heraclitus is saying, that even the Bible talks about. Now, did the world, according to the Bible, remain a blooming, buzzing confusion? Yes or no?
No.
No, it
No.
didn't.
No.
If we were to continue to read Genesis chapter 1, we would read about how God brings order to the creation. We would read about how God, he says, let there be light, and there was light. And suddenly, and God begins to divide things and shape things. And before you know it, there's dry land and trees and animals. And what Genesis 1 is about is the process through which God brings order into the world, the process through which God brings order out of what?
Chaos.
Nothing.
Chaos. Nothing.
Nothing.
What's the opposite of order?
Chaos.
Chaos.
Chaos. That's exactly right. But see, what I want you to realize is that there is chaos in the Bible. The Bible doesn't say chaos doesn't exist. The Bible doesn't say that chaos isn't real. The Bible says chaos is very real, and it's part of what we need to think about if we're going to think about reality. Okay? And y'all, that's Heraclitus and Cratylus. Remember, Cratylus one-ups Heraclitus. Cratylus is like Heraclitus on steroids, okay? What does Heraclitus say? He says that the world is a blooming, buzzing confusion. He says that there's no such thing as stable identities. He says that everything is constantly changing and everything is in flux. All right? Yeah, and y'all, I think that's all I want to say about Heraclitus for now. Let me ask you a question. Who is the person that we are putting into relationship with Heraclitus?
Parmenides?
Parmenides, that's exactly right. And y'all, whenever I go like this, I'm talking about this relationship of these two people, the two becoming one. And my fancy word for that is the word dialectic. I'm going to put that in the chat. That's one of those things that could likely be on the final exam. The word dialectic. Have we talked about the word logos in this class? Logos? I think we did, right?
Yes, I think we did.
Like biology is the logos of what?
Of cells?
Life.
Life.
Yeah, life.
Like the basis.
Yeah, biology is the logos of life, right? Does that make sense to y'all? So logos is a Greek word. In fact, we see that word in John 1:1. Remember, I'm not expecting you guys to be priests or anything, or to be Christians or anything like that. Maybe you're an atheist. Great. I don't care. But I want you to know how to think historically. And in order to understand where ideas come from, you're going to have to think about the Bible. You're going to have to think about theology. You're going to have to think about stuff like that. And so that word logos pops up in John 1:1, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. John is the fourth gospel. It's the fourth book of the New Testament. John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the what? Anyone know?
Word.
Yes, the Word. In the beginning was the Word, but the way that John says it in Greek is, in the beginning was the logos, okay? So that word logos is a super important word. We're going to be talking about it throughout the rest of the semester. But for now, what I want you to realize is that biology is the logos of life, okay? And theology is the logos of what?
God.
That's God. That's exactly right. But y'all look at this word dialectic with me in the chat. You see that word dialectic? Who can tell me what the prefix is of that word?
Dialect.
I'm going to go with dia, D-I-A. That's the prefix. Who can tell me what the root word is?
Is that day?
Who can tell me what the root word is?
Lectic.
Lectic. Or I'm going to say that the IC is a suffix. I'm going to say that the root word is lect.
What's the hour? 40?
That's the root word, lect, right? Now, we see that root word in other words like lecture, right? In Spanish, lectura, leer, but it's related to the word logos. So, or think about this word, dialogue. What's the root word in that?
Dia.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've also
Logic.
Yeah, L-O-G, right? Like logos.
Log.
And see, dialogue is basically the same thing as dialectic. It's talking about logos. What is a logos? Well, it's a word, it's an idea, it's a concept. What does the prefix dia mean?
I keep wanting to say day, but I think that's wrong.
I think it's like duo.
Yeah. What does duo mean?
Like
Two.
Two, right? Two. Actually, the word dia, it can mean through, like a diaphragm is that we breathe through our diaphragm. Yeah, I'm sure that I have nursing majors in my class. Am I right? Is the diaphragm that we breathe
like a
through?
diagnosis.
So that, oh yeah, good. Who said diagnosis?
I did. Rachel.
What is your name?
My name's Rachel. I'm
Rachel.
tardy to the class, like so tardy. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's it. But good word on that. I love it. Diagnosis. A diagnosis is that through which we know things, right? So the prefix dia can mean through, but it can also mean to, like Sergio said. And in this case, a dialogue is like a conversation of two different words. It's when you take two things like words or ideas or philosophies and you put them together. That's a dialogue or a dialectic. Are you with me? And so the first big thing that I do in my philosophy class is I take two different worldviews, two different thinkers, two different ideas, and I put them into dialectic or dialogue because they make a really good marriage, as we're going to see later in the semester. What is the first person that I put in dialogue? Who is the first person?
I don't know if this is your question.
Heraclitus?
It's Heraclitus. And who do I put Heraclitus in dialogue with?
Parmenides?
Parmenides, that's exactly right. Now, what is the thing that both Heraclitus and Parmenides agree on?
All is one or change.
All is one, but they mean radically different things by it, right? What does Heraclitus mean by all is one?
That nothing has a stable identity.
Yeah. Yes, but that
Extreme
doesn't sound like
flux.
good. What's the metaphor that we use for Heraclitus talking about one?
The river.
Water and oil.
Water and oil. In other words, a bottle of salad dressing, right? A bottle of vinaigrette salad dressing where everything's swirling together, right? That's the kind of thing that Heraclitus means when he says all is one. But Parmenides means something radically different from that. Okay? Now, what in the world does Parmenides mean by all is one? And we have about 10 minutes. By the way, who's my timekeeper?
I am.
Thanks. Oh, Ashley, thank you so much. Yes, very good. We're going to try to end in 10 minutes. And I'm looking at the Peter Adamson essay on Parmenides. In fact, I'm going to pull it up if I can. Oh, there it is. Okay. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Cool. All right. Parmenides is like the polar opposite of Heraclitus. By the way, this guy, Peter Adamson, he has a really amazing podcast that I cannot recommend enough. If any of you guys are interested in philosophy, his podcast is called The History of, oh, there it is right there. You see that? A History of Philosophy Without Any Gaps. That's the name of his podcast. It's really, really good. But he does a good job in talking about Parmenides here. This is good. Metaphysics is a bit stranger. It really means after physics. We talked about that, right?
I actually had a question about
Yes.
that paragraph.
Go ahead, Dan. Oh, the first paragraph?
Oh, no, it was about the metaphysics paragraph.
Go ahead, Daniel.
So I remember we talked about how in metaphysics, the prefix meta means like after. So it's like we learn metaphysics after physics. But in the reading, they said like Aristotle calls metaphysics first because it was like the first philosophy that you would not the first philosophy you would study, but it was like the fundamental philosophical inquiry. I was just a little bit confused on that because you know how meta means after.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So was that Daniel?
Yes, sir.
That is such a great question. And believe me, Daniel, we are going to be talking a lot about that as the course continues. Let me say real quick, because you asked, because Daniel, you uttered a very important phrase. And the phrase that you uttered is the phrase first philosophy. And you're right. Aristotle says that metaphysics is first philosophy. Guess who else talks about first philosophy? Who's this?
Rene Descartes.
Descartes. Let me hear you say Descartes.
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 We're going to read Descartes later in the semester, right? And the title of the work that we're going to read is this. Who can read this?
Meditations on First Philosophy.
Did you hear that? First philosophy. Wow. So Aristotle talks about first philosophy and Descartes talks about first philosophy, an ancient philosopher, and then, 2000 years later, a modern philosopher also talking about first philosophy. But Daniel, your question is super awesome. I want to keep it as simple as I can, and I'm just going to say that the word first can mean lots of things, and I just want to say that, and I'll put this in the chat. First philosophy is first in the sense of priority. That is, it is most important. You see that, Daniel? There's
Yes,
lots
sir.
of different meanings of the word first. And when Aristotle says that that metaphysics is first philosophy, he means that it's first in importance, not necessarily first in sequence.
Yeah,
So-
so you could study metaphysics after physics, but it would still be like the most important.
You actually have to study metaphysics after physics for Aristotle
Right.
and Thomas Aquinas.
Right.
And yes, you are correct. Metaphysics is more important, but there is something else, and I'm going to resist the temptation to talk about it right now. And but I'll just say it real quick, Daniel. What Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas would both say is that actually it's a paradox. Even though you have to study physics before you can go on to metaphysics. In other words, physics is a prereq for metaphysics, right? Nevertheless, you really don't understand physics until you've also grasped metaphysics. So you do have to learn metaphysics before you can graduate to physics. But really, you're not going to understand physics until after you do metaphysics. After you grasp metaphysics, you can loop back around and you're like, oh, wow. Suddenly I understand everything about physics now.
Yeah, I was just confused because like the wording clashed with the definition that you described last week.
Cool. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Awesome. That's good stuff. We're going to come back to that stuff later in the semester when we get to Aristotle especially. But for now, I just want to say a couple more words about Parmenides. The problem is I don't know what I want to say. Okay. Yes, I do. I'm gonna do this. Here's what I'm gonna say about Parmenides, and we'll pick this up next week. So, okay. Fill in the blank. For Heraclitus, all is what?
One.
One. And by one, he means something like the salad dressing, the vinaigrette salad dressing that's flowing and getting all mixed up. Now, Parmenides also says that all is one. Okay, actually, sorry. What I want to say to you is this. Heraclitus thinks that all is flux, right? Flux. Heraclitus says that all is flux, but Parmenides says that all is what?
One, but he had a different for one.
He does say all is one, but I want to know this the unique thing that he says that Heraclitus does not say.
He says reality itself, reality itself is one, nothing ever changes or moves, and
good.
multiplicity is an illusion.
Who's talking right now?
Whitney Walters.
Thank you, Whitney. Yes. Now, who is my friend who works at Starbucks?
That's me.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Sloan. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Okay, cool. Whitney, thank you for that. By the way, I worked at Starbucks for 4 years, a long time ago, between ages 32 and 36. Yeah.
Me too.
It's an experience.
It is. Yeah. I don't miss it, but I also am truly grateful for it. So anyway, so Whitney, yeah, I love what you just said about how Parmenides says that reality does not change and stuff like that. We're going to get to that in a minute. But for now, I'm going to fill in the blank for you. Heraclitus says that all is flux, but Parmenides says that all is being. That's kind of weird, right? By the way, Heraclitus is also kind of weird. They're both kind of weird. But Parmenides says that everything is being. What Parmenides says is radically different from Heraclitus. What Parmenides says is that the only thing that exists is being. That's the only thing that exists is being. In fact, and what the hell does he mean by being? Well, that's what we're going to talk about next class. But for now, I want to just say one other thing about Parmenides, and that is what Parmenides says is you can't think about non-being, right? So in the little poem that he writes, Peter Adamson talks about it in the essay. There's a part, so Parmenides talks about being. He says that all is being. What is the world? Being. That's it, being. He says, don't even think about non-being. In fact, you can't think about non-being. Non-being isn't real. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. If you start thinking about it, you're going to run into contradictions. In fact, it's impossible to think about it, so you shouldn't try. And so this is why in my intro to philosophy class, I say that Parmenides plays a game of whack-a-non-being. You remember whack-a-mole? I think you probably know what whack-a-mole is. It's when the mole pops up and you have to whack it, right? Parmenides doesn't play whack-a-mole. He plays whack-a-non-being. He says, Don't talk to me about non-being. I fucking hate non-being. Non-being doesn't exist. It's incoherent. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Whack a non-being, okay? What Parmenides says is that the only thing that exists is what?
Being.
Being. And y'all, what is being? That's what we're going to talk about next time. But what I want you to know is that Heraclitus says that all is flux. Everything is flux. The world is flux. Parmenides says, oh, no. Everything is being. And do not, whatever you do not talk about non-being or you'll die. Okay? Y'all, that's it for me. It's great to be with y'all today. It's 5 o'clock. I'm trying to keep this class to an hour. We will pick up with Parmenides next time. And for now, we're going to plan on being on Zoom again next class on Monday. Although I'm going to consider other opinions if there are any. And oh man, I'm really glad for Michael's comment. Michael, you're awesome. Hang with me, brother. Hang with me. I'm really glad you said that, because the worst thing you can possibly do is keep your mouth shut if you feel lost. So Michael, I predict that soon you will not be lost. And just hang in there with me, okay? And it's good to hear from you guys. And now, may the force be with you.
And also with you.
Also
With you, dude.
Have a great weekend. Y'all take care.
You too. Thank
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.